Ellen, you're nodding your head.
Yes, I was just thinking, interestingly, this afternoon we've talked a lot about words and text and theatre, perhaps the spoken word more than the other art forms. And I'm very, at the moment where we are in Bangor, we have a very interesting project, a music project, that's actually a model from Venezuela, and you will have heard of El Sistema. And as a pilot project, Codi'r To is enabling very, very underprivileged children in Maesgyrchen, which is an estate that's within a mile of Pontios, so very, very relevant to us. And these children are learning instruments in a way that it becomes part of the bread and butter, you know, in what they eat, what they consume. It's the air they breathe. And I think there's something about the arts becoming part of the air you breathe. It's not just that person coming in, that exotic person to run a workshop every once in 6 months. It's something that you rely on to live, actually, and you cannot live without. And I think that's what the likes of El Sistema, or Codi'r To, as we call it, are enabling. But it does come with a cost. So, you know, to go back to what you're saying, that does come with a cost, because you need quality of experience. You need to give those children what they deserve. Not something second-hand, but something of quality. And that comes as a price, and we need to acknowledge that.
I think one interesting thing you said there as well is that El Sistema has come from Venezuela. And if we start looking outside of Wales for answers, and you were asking about practical solutions that institutions can start doing, whether it's cost minimum or whatever, and I use a very small example here of how another organisation, this time in New York, that I've started having a dialogue with, called Urban Word New York, and they're involved with disaffected communities within the Bronx and Brooklyn, and getting young people, particularly young men, to express themselves through hip-hop and spoken word. Sorry to use that example again. They also run a very, very interesting project called the Young People's Laureate of New York, which is why I came across them, because we run the Young People's Laureate in Wales. And it's a fairly new project we've run, and in the last couple of laureates, if you like, we've identified figureheads within the literary community who are excellent writers who can speak to young people. In New York, it's different, and there's a continuation there. They start working with young people at quite a young age. They develop then. The Young People's Laureate comes from the young people. So they're 17, 18, 19 years old. And I'm in discussion with bringing that to Wales. So the next time you'll hear about Young People's Laureate in Wales, they won't be from the established literary writers in Wales. They will actually be the ones that we're currently nurturing through slams, workshops, through everything. And that's just a complete flip of how we saw a project. So rather than take a writer or an artist into schools or young people telling them, you're encouraging that activity, and they get to choose their figurehead. And in New York, it's closely linked with the Youth for Democracy movement, just trying to get more young people, particularly from Latino and Black communities, to participate in the democratic process. I vote. And since they've done this, they've seen the voting amongst this demography grow in New York, because a laureate is a figurehead and encourages young people to express their political opinion through words, through action, activism in the community. It's all linked up. And here in Wales, we don't connect poetry with activism. Maybe we used to. And the people in similar jobs to mine in New York call themselves arts activists. So I want to declare myself a literature activist here because I want action to happen. I want things to move on, and I want to be inspired by examples from all over the world. That means that we can kind of unshackle ourselves from ways we've been doing things in the past which might not have reached in the right way, or might not have allowed our young people to express themselves truly.
It's very exciting. I really like that coming together of arts and activism. And David, have you got anything to say about that from an institutional point of view? I mean, you presumably deal largely in large buildings, and they are very, very expensive to run. Do you think that something about these futures that we're looking at is going to challenge the existence of buildings like yours, and that actually to enable, I mean, in terms of going back to resource, to enable resource, to actually hit people, hit children, to really change lives and make a difference across the country. You know, what do you feel with these big buildings and collections?
I suppose I feel that institutions of all kinds give a message to the societies in which they're part about what's valued and what's not valued. And if one's honest about the museum and gallery sector anyway, by and large historically, and I would even say often today, the message that is given is one of exclusion and of the right to be close to works of art, the right even to touch works of art or other objects, lies with a very select few. The decisions about what's important and what's not important to talk about, to display, lies with a very few. And again and again and again, it's reinforced that there is a wide gap between professional and public. And in a way, this is an irony, given the origins of very many museums in the 19th century, which came out of all sorts of different kinds of community organisations and local history societies and things like that, that we have transformed that narrative into one of privilege in lots of ways. So I feel that we have a huge responsibility to undo some of that, some of those developments, and to reflect through how we are the society to which we are responsible. And we have the privilege, in cases of National Museum Wales and others, of public funding. And in a democratic society, I believe that comes with it the responsibility to be, in some cases, activists, in others, peer learners, that families that come in through the door should be able to be part of the place, and the children should experience it with the parents, and that they can do something. They are makers of history or makers of science or whatever themselves, not the observers of the greatness of others. And until we can make that transformation, I don't feel, in some ways, we're fully earning our right to be public organisations. And I do really feel in a democracy we have to question ourselves very hard about how we fulfil our responsibilities to those who have funded us and of whom we are supposed to be part. And I do think there are practical steps which there isn't time today to discuss really, but there are very, very practical things we can do just in the texture of daily life and daily experience for people who use our institutions, which can make a tremendous difference to that.